Dun, dun, dun.
I can't do it! This is way too graphic and vivid and dangly! Ugh, this is too much for a kid like you!
Hey everyone! Today we'll take a look at the recently released Hyperdevotion Noire Goddess Blackheart for the PC. Originally it was a PSV game, but like all Vita Neptunia games, it somehow found its way onto Steam. Well, producing perfection didn't, but honestly, I'm fine with that. Hyperdevotion Noire is a spin-off from the Neptunia series of games. Instead of Neptune, Noire is serving as the main character, and the game is now a grid-based tactical RPG. Oh, and everyone's all chibi looking. I have the original Vita version, and I did an unboxing of the limited edition of it too, if you want to have a look at that. The first thing I thought was that it looks kinda similar to Disgaea, but in reality it's not as complex, deep, or refined. There's still lots of fun to be had though. I've certainly enjoyed playing it. Unlike Neptunia U, which in terms of story and gameplay occasionally felt a little simplified, Hyperdevotion Noire feels like an actual Neptunia game with good gameplay and a proper Neptunia plot. I guess you can say it doesn't feel half-assed. I said in my Neptunia U review that this was my favorite Neptunia spin-off, but I'm changing that to Hyperdevotion Noire. It's good enough to sit with the main series, in my opinion. I'm sure most people watching know what the Nep games are all about, but if you don't, here's a quick rundown. The main characters are four goddesses, Neptune, Noire, Blanc, and Vert, who are personifications of game consoles. They compete against each other in order to become the most powerful of the goddesses. That's basically the gist of it, and the game even tells you in the first cutscene. Like with most Neptunia games, you don't really need to have played any of the previous games to enjoy it, but it certainly helps since there's many references to previous games throughout the game. Unlike other Neptunia games, Hyperdevotion takes place in game market instead of game industry. In other words, it's a different dimension than the regular games, and the storyline isn't part of the main series. In this dimension, Noire is the most powerful CPU of all, and wishes to unify all of game market under her rule. Of course, things don't go exactly to plan. Noire gets tricked by someone named Ino, and along with the other CPUs, get their powers robbed from them. Ino looks pretty familiar. I wonder where I've seen her before.
Who are you? We've clearly never met before. No.
The CPUs appoint Noire as the leader of the group, and together they try to regain their powers. Additionally, the player is represented as a faceless male in true visual novel style. The player character is Noire's secretary and isn't a playable character. He's in the game so that you can pretend that Noire is going all tsundere on you, basically.
Don't sweat it. I mean, after all, we're kind of sort of friends to be, right?
As I mentioned before, the game is a turn-based tactical RPG. It's grid-based like Disgaea, so if you've played that before, you'll probably get the hang of it quick. When it's your turn, you can move your character around, attack, use skills and SP skills, items, and lift stuff. Characters can use skills to either support your characters or deal heavy damage to enemies. Skills use up SP, but give you LP. Lily points allow you to use more powerful special attacks, as well as transform into HDD mode, which ups stats and makes your character more powerful. If your character uses skills with other allies around them, then they'll give them a smooch that powers up the skill and decreases the SP or LP usage. More characters means a better boost. So the more girls the better, basically. Isn't that right, Bert? The Lily rank system shows you how much characters like each other. The higher the rank, the bigger the boost effect. The more characters kiss each other, the higher the ranking goes. As I mentioned before, the goddesses can transform into HDD mode if you have enough LP stored up. This changes their appearance and gives them extra firepower. The effect only lasts 3 turns, and they can't transform again afterwards, so it's a good idea to be smart about when to use it.
I'm serious now! Time to end this!
There are many, many status ailments your characters can suffer. Look, there's 3 pages of them. Some of them are pretty funny, like Tofu and Pixel. For some reason, the game tries to be fan-servicey, even with the chibi art style. with penny shots and things like that. It's silly, but I always get a kick out of that.
My true powers have awakened. Prepare yourself.
Something I don't like is how long all the animations are. It feels like I'm constantly watching characters walk and jump from one side of the screen to the other, when all I want to do is quickly position them. Thankfully, you can turn off and speed up battle animation to whatever you like. Another thing that's a little bit frustrating is that you can't undo moves sometimes, like how you can in Disgaea. I'm used to arranging characters on screen, stacking commands, and then executing the moves. You can't really do this in Hyperdevotion. It's not really criticism, to be honest, it's just me trying to force Disgaea game mechanics onto the game. The menu system is very similar to other Neptunia games, except it's all last station based. You've got the shop where you can buy items, weapons, and armor. Mission HQ is a place where you select which quest to play. It's kind of like the Dimensional Gate in the Disgaea games. Disc Dev and Item Dev allows you to develop new items from items dropped from enemies or that you found in chests. CPU Hotel gives you access to illustrations, videos, and music you've unlocked. Selecting Basilicom brings you to a new game mode called Sim Noire. Basically, you unlock event scenes with Noire by selecting the right options when responding to citizen requests and upgrading her room. As you can see, Noire's room is pretty crappy, especially considering that she's a goddess. Even the furniture is pretty disgusting looking. Look at that manky-ass carpet. You don't use money to buy items, but sim points, which you can get by purchasing stuff at the shops. Also, weirdly enough, the furniture can talk. That carpet is dirty in more ways than one, it seems. That's better. A gameplay element I enjoy are the numerous traps and little gimmicks like moving platforms and trains. I like stuff like that, and it adds challenge to the missions. On the downside, that means a lot of missions can only be navigated a certain way. Sometimes it's really tedious. Ugh, this is taking forever. And the enemies can just walk through everything. Assholes. If you want, you can get new items and characters by purchasing DLC. The items are pretty strong, so you'll lose a bit of the challenge. I guess this is one of those games where you can pay to win. Before you can use your newly purchased gear, you're going to have to activate them first in the main menu. The list can get quite long. Speaking of long, you'll be watching through a lot of cutscenes. They're in a visual novel style and are up to par with the main Neptunia games. I really like the range of expressions. I'm a little sad that the CPU candidates are nowhere to be found in the game, but there are a whole bunch of new characters to fill the gaps. In typical Neptunia fashion, the characters represent various game franchises and companies. Still, it's a bit weird seeing Vert trying to convince someone other than Nepgear to be her little sister. In terms of graphics, the game isn't bad looking at all. The biggest problem is that it only runs at 30 frames per second. I played around with the settings, but I wasn't able to get 60 frames per second out of it, which is a shame. Hopefully a patch will fix this in the future. Also, very noticeably, all characters are all done up in a chibi style. They all look like Nendoroids. I'm not sure what to think about that since I don't really like Nendoroids all that much, but I guess they're easier to position in a square than normal character models. The enemies are just lifted from previous Nep games, so don't really expect anything new in that department. There's a PS4 that looks like a cat, and it has a ball sack. And that's Hyperdevotion Noire for the PC. I think it's a pretty fun game. If you like Disgaea and Neptunia games, you'll likely dig this game too. It's available on Steam right now, so check it out if you find what you see interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.
Help with me.
To the next stage. Being an MVP is such a delight.